Hello, my cyber babies. It's the even more fabulous Mother Love coming to you live and in living color, well, as opposed to coming to you dead and in black and white. And we are so pleased to have you join us. Make sure you follow us on all the platforms, the Facebook, the Twitter, Pinstagram, Pinterest. It's a bunch of them. TikTok. That's you know what I'm saying. I am so pleased and honored to have this lady join us today to talk about a very serious subject that most people just don't want to talk about for whatever reason. And what she does is just wait till you hear what she does and who she is. Her name is Elizabeth Uslander. Am I saying it right?
Yes, ma'am.
She's an MSW, that's a Master of Social Work, MTS, and End of Life Care. She has done so many things. You're a social worker. Before we get into that, welcome to the program. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm
It's
excited
my
to
pleasure.
talk.
The universe was trying to stop us, but listen, the Blaine group and Devin and Adam, they don't play.
Yeah, they're
We don't back
amazing.
down. We don't back down. So first of all, tell us something about Elizabeth that people don't know. Where are you from?
I'm from Washington, D.C., actually, even though I live in San Diego now. So I
Uh,
made it all the way to the West.
what brought you out to LA, out to the area from DC?
Well, my family's originally from the West Coast, so I visited a bit when I was younger, and then I ended up at college here, and I fell in love with Southern California. How could you not? So I went back and gradually knew that I needed to be here, gradually made my way back here to settle down for our family.
See, that is wonderful. So tell us how you met your husband, Bob.
So it's interesting actually because we work together. So we met through our shared passion for serving people in end of life care. I was on the board of a nonprofit organization, and he came to speak to the nonprofit organization, and we started talking about the work that we both do. And it was just very clear that we have a lot of aligned interests and experience, and we started building stuff together. And 7 years later, here we are.
How about that? Now, what made you want to be involved in palliative care and end of life?
That's an interesting story. So it's a little bit of a personal story and a professional story. I had, when I was younger, a lot of health conditions that were serious challenges, and went through being in the system, the healthcare system, and really learning about how you have to be an advocate for yourself, and how hard it can be to find the right resources, and how challenging it can be for families to get the support that they need. And then through my education, both at seminary and then with the master's in social work, the intersection of spiritual care and clinical medical social work was very naturally in palliative and end of life care. So that's how I ended up in that space, in that field. And then the combination of some personal losses that I experienced. My daughter's father passed away when she was 9, which was a tragic surprise. And my best friend died in 2018, which I was very grateful to be at bedside with her and her family in that transition. They shaped my understanding of what it is to be a loved one affected by a loss, and on a lot of different levels. And so my work became focused on ensuring that families had the care and support and understanding that they needed in order to support their loved one through their end of life journey, and also in order to support themselves in the end of life and grief journey afterwards.
And so many people just don't want to have that conversation. So many people don't want to even learn how to navigate through it. It's a part of life. It's called end of life. It's the beginning of life. That's birth. It's the end of life. That's death. And the part in the middle, this is what you're working on. But especially in our community, and there are a lot of people who believe who act this way. Oh, I don't want to talk about that. I don't want to talk about dying, because if I don't want to get a life insurance policy. Oh, when I'm dead, I'm dead. Okay, I don't want to worry about that. And if you say, well, this is what, just stop and let's talk about this. What do you want to do? And how do you want to be remembered and reminded of your spirit being on the planet? And then they just kind of glaze over. I don't want to talk about that now. Like they're going to live forever. They shouldn't even call it life insurance. They should call it death insurance, because you're insured to die. And then
That's
your family, your people that you leave with you. And the, I have I have a lot of experience in what it is that you do, because people, they die all the time. And when I was a little girl, everybody came to my mother. She was like the doula in the community, and everybody came to her when somebody was sick, was going through that. And so being drugged by her, in no choice of mine, but being drugged by her to go and to sit with people at the end stages, let them know that you're there, that they're not going to go by themselves. And that became so critical and so important, because we're all going to take that journey. I know you think you're going to live forever. I get it. I thought that crazy talk too. And they don't want to talk to their younger people. What would you advise and say to parents and grandparents about approaching this grief, the grief counseling and the palliative care? Because it's going to come. And the hardest thing to do is to be there at the end of life with a child.
Yeah,
How do you talk to them about this?
it's hard for some people to consider it. It's interesting, actually. When I started this work, my mom is a great example of someone who was really concerned about it. She didn't let us talk about my job at the dinner table on holidays. I was not allowed to communicate about what I was doing because it was upsetting to her. And then she started to explore the education that we offered the community and services and seminars. And she experienced a change where she went from being afraid of talking about it because of whatever it was that meant to her, to being interested in learning about it so that she could develop actually a healthy relationship with the idea that she eventually will be passing away. And so that she can prepare herself in a way that allows it to be a beautiful experience as opposed to a frightful struggle. And I think that the best advice is to find whatever doors in you can. Education is huge. Having people learn about what it really means to talk about it. A lot of people, I think if you talk about it, you're going to make it happen, which is a kind of silly thing that is actually very real.
Elizabeth, that part. That's the part. That
That's
part.
so real. And it's important to honor that people really experience these things as true, and to help meet them where they are and find wherever they're open to exploring whatever it is. Sometimes it's spiritual ideas. Sometimes they had an experience that they're afraid that they don't want to go through, or that they're afraid they might experience themselves. And just looking for those gentle spaces where people are open to having a conversation, not necessarily directly to the point, but about their experience of life. Because like you said, an end of life journey is really about how you're living while you're also aware of the reality that you are dying. And ultimately, we all are. So
I tell people this all the time. Don't take life serious. You're not coming out of this alive. Have as much fun. Put as much joy in your
gotta
life.
play.
Be around fun people. Get around kids. I'm not talking about like being a perv around kids. You have to preface that nowadays. We would have never thought about that. But to keep joy in your life, because and you never know when it's going to be. You just never know. I had several people that I know, who, my mother included, and my literary agent, and several other people, they said, I've lived on my own terms. I want to die on my own terms. My mother had a specific way that she wanted her passing to be joyous. And she said to me, I'm going to die in the spring. I said, Mama, what makes you think you're going to die in the spring? She said, baby, because I don't like the wintertime. Dead or alive, I'm not going to like the wintertime. And she died in the spring. She made her transition. And she said, listen, I'm not dying. My body has worn out. And that's what it is. My spirit and my soul, I will know by the universe how well I did, because people will remember me. And how do you forget your mother? Okay. My mother's been off the planet for a long time, and I'm still scared of her.
Yeah, she's with you. I think that's also
all the
part of
time.
it.
All the
Yeah.
time. And that's what you want to bring. Do you physically go to people, or do they physically come to you, like the funeral director? You go before them and you make the plans and everything. Tell people though first, Elizabeth, how important it is to have a plan for your end of life.
So that's actually exactly what you're talking about, is if you're able to talk about it, if you're able to think about what it is that you would want to experience. Do you want to be in your home? Do you want to go through treatments, even if it's going to be really painful and challenging and diminish your quality of life, so that you have more time with your family or your loved ones or whatever it is that you want to be doing? Thinking about what you can imagine it to be so that you would be happy with the journey is really important. And then being able to talk to people about it, talking to your doctors about it, talking to your family members about it, so they know how to support you in achieving those goals and wishes. And so what we do is actually we start there. We have a lot of people come to Empowered Endings for conversations about the planning. They have some ideas and they want to talk to a doctor and a counselor about how they would put in place whatever they need to and how they would communicate with their families about it. And we help them with that. And then the people who are more sort of towards the end of the journey, who are wanting support and guidance and care as they're going through their end of life journey, we go to them, we go to their homes or wherever it is that they are, and we connect with them and understand them and who they are and what they really want and what they can do about it. So a lot of people have ideas that, it's hard to find the right resources, and we get really creative about making sure we bring in everything that they want and need. And the healthcare system offers some of that support too. Palliative care and hospice are part of the traditional healthcare model, but there are aspects of those things that are not available, that are necessary for some people. Like you said, your mom wants to die the way she lived. A lot of people want to go out the way they've been in, and doing it in an empowered way where they have the resources that they need, the support that they want, and having it done basically their way, and giving them the permission to choose what that way is and the support that they need to make it happen is what we do.
And see, and that is why the service that you guys provide is so critical to our society. So here you are. How did you even get to that? I mean, did you wake up one day and say, Elizabeth, let me talk to myself? Self, I think I want to get into the grief counseling business. I
Yeah.
think I want to show how I can mesh those together with my spiritual cognitive skills. I mean, how did that just fall down in your lap? Or did
Not
you
at
just
all like that. My life has been nothing like that. If my life has been like anything, it's been like waking up one day, looking around, kind of trying to figure out where I am and where that's taking me. So that's how I ended up here. I've actually worked in social services and education my whole career in a lot of different capacities, and I had no idea that I was going to end up in end of life care. It was through a fluke, actually.
nah?
I was well,
Nope. Stop.
exactly.
Let me just check a sister right here. It was not a fluke. It was
It was
not a fluke.
not a
And
fluke.
you cannot say that to me. And you're a spiritual counselor. Nope. You got to go in there with that, because you know that was from the universe just forming you and molding you and like pushing. Look, I'm stuck together with bubblegum and duct tape, so I know what I'm talking about. And that is your assignment. That is, and we have to find it. When it fell in your lap, she called it a fluke. I'm gonna come up with an acronym for that.
So
But
it was
when it
very
got to your
much
lap,
it was
did you
very
know that
much
you know, or were you terrified at first?
no, I knew exactly. So it was very much grace in the moment that I was led to in a way that I had no idea I would ever experience. And I remember the very first patient that I was serving, and the connection that I experienced in that, and the experience of walking with that gentleman and his family through his journey. It was actually right after my father-in-law had passed away, and so I was recently experiencing what it was to go through that as a family member, and all the dots just connected all of a sudden. And I heard myself say to myself, as you say, I heard myself say, like, this is it. This is what you're here to do. This is what you're doing. This is absolutely it. And then I said to myself, well, now just wait a second here. You've been doing this for exactly 1 hour. So maybe this is it, but maybe not. So let's not get too excited. And just every step of the way, it has been so clear. This is absolutely what I belong doing, and this is my calling. And to serve people in this space is something that, a lot of people ask me how I can possibly do it. It must be so hard. And it's actually one of the most life-giving, life-affirming experiences, because the people who are going through these journeys are alive before they pass, before they transition. They are connected, and their children and their loved ones are surrounding them, and they're experiencing their legacy, and they're at peace in a way because of the way we get to do it. So many people are really having a beautiful journey, and it really reinforces how powerful it can be when we are empowered, when we have agency, when we have dignity, when we have connection, and when we have the support and resources to make all of those things happen, whether it's at the end of life or anywhere before that. It can be magnificent, and it can be really life affirming. And so it continues to inspire me every day.
See, that's so beautiful because when you think about it, most people are afraid to have this conversation. It's like they're terrified of talking about finances and death. Okay, that's where
It's
you need the
scary
counseling. That's where you need
for some
to talk to
people.
somebody who knows what they're doing.
Yeah.
Um, how did you guys land on the title of your program, Empowered Endings?
It came to us. We've been dreaming together for years, and it really all came to us in that space of inspiration and conversation. We bounced ideas off of each other, and we were looking for the name, and it just sort of popped up in conversation, and we were like, that's it, because that's what we are doing. And it really applies to so much of our other experiences in life. We've both had losses, we've been through divorces, we've had career changes, we've had a lot of life happen to us. We've had health problems, we've done all of it. And to recognize that through all of it, what we needed was that grace of empowerment, and that we can give that back by using whatever our expertise and experience, the wisdom of our shared experience and all the work that we're doing. That's what we want to do, is serve people in giving them what we knew we needed at the times that we needed it, and especially in those end of life and grief journeys.
And when we think about end of life, most often we think about adults and senior citizens passing.
Yeah,
Is the dynamic different? Do you have to take a different path when it's a child, when
for
it's a
sure.
baby?
For sure. So I don't personally have a ton of experience in pediatric
Mhm,
oncology or palliative care or end of life care. Um, it is absolutely different on so many different
mhm,
levels, because when grandma's dying, everyone recognizes that it is that time. It may
mhm,
be very deeply sad, it may be very deeply hard, but there's something that feels more natural.
mhm.
When we lose children, or when someone like my first husband dies at a young age,
Oh
there's
my.
something about that that doesn't feel natural. And it
Mhm.
can really add challenges to the journey and also to the life afterwards.
See, this is just amazing that this is what you do and how you go forward with this. Can you walk us through a scenario? Okay, one of my friends. He was my dear friend.
Mm,
He had contracted a rare lung disease, and they
mm,
told him, they said, uh, "We can get you a lung transplant. We can put you on the list." He says, "I don't want to be on the list. I don't want a lung transplant." And I'm like, "Why don't you want a lung transplant?" And he goes, "Because I live like I chose to live, and I'm going to die like I choose to die." Well, he was living in New York when he got diagnosed. The doctor said to him, and he went to all the specialists, everybody that would, and everybody told him the same thing: you can get a lung transplant. He was like, "Nope, nope, nope." So eventually he had to move out here because the weather was too bad in New York. So he moves out here, and we go and see him, and he goes, well, he was here for like maybe a few months, and then his health was deteriorating, and he had to go to hospice. Okay, that was my first like actual hospice, experience. And then I got kind of jacked up on it because they said that you when you go to hospice, you have less than 3 months. That's like 90 days to be on the planet. Okay, and we would go down and visit him almost every weekend, and they tried to put him out of hospice care. because he wouldn't die. And it was like, isn't that he actually stayed there for like 3.5 years. And then
Wow.
they said, can y'all not come down here? Because we need the man isn't supposed to have been dead like 2.5 years ago. And the weekend we didn't go, he passed away that Monday.
Interesting.
Peacefully. Peacefully. And that's what he said. He said, I'm gonna die on my own terms. And that's what he did. And they said it he didn't haunt me, but I could feel the spirit around me.
Yeah.
When you're there and the spirit leaves them, are you actually there? Have you actually been there when they took their last breath? And when they do, can you still feel them?
I've had a lot of personal experiences with that. And thank you for sharing that story with your friend. I think, it speaks a lot to what we're talking about. He declined treatment that he didn't want, and he wanted to experience the rest of his journey his own way. Hospice is really interesting. So you have to have a doctor, actually two doctors, give you a 6-month prognosis in order to qualify for hospice. And a lot of people receive hospice care and then start to get a little bit better because they've got nurses coming to their home, they've got health aides coming to their home and taking care of them. They're getting connected to people. Things are feeling a little bit more hopeful and better, and they've got medications to help support their comfort. So sometimes, because it's a Medicare regulated benefit, they have to revoke hospice if people don't continue to decline or stay within that 6-month prognosis. And so that's a tricky thing for the hospice staff and the patients and families to navigate when those things come up.
And they do happen. They do happen. People
But
have to be prepared. How I know the age for adults is 18 years old. Yeah, right. I know some 38 years old and are not adults yet. Uh, how young can somebody be? If you want to, do you train other people to do what it is that you do?
yeah, so what do you mean? How young can
Yeah,
somebody
I
do
mean,
this
how
work?
young have you had somebody come to you and say, Elizabeth, I want to do this,
As
and will you help me do
like
this?
a counselor in this
Yes,
space
yes,
and things
like a
like that?
counselor, a grief counselor, palliative care.
I don't know that I've had anyone who was really young come to me and say, this is what I want to do. But a lot of the people that I meet who want to do this share the story at whatever age they come to us that they have known for a long time, or that they've been in relationship for a long time with end of life experiences and with grief experiences. My grandfather was a minister, and he, just like your mom, he dragged my dad around to people's homes as he ministered to them in their end of life journeys. And so from a young age, he had a really comfortable relationship with the natural process
Mhm.
of living and dying and what comes next and all of those kinds of things. And I think that there are some people who have at a young age some interesting experiences that connect them to it, or some impactful experiences that they have to move through that are really challenging and that allow them to grow through these challenging spaces, which are very delicate and dynamic. And then over the course of life, a lot of the people that I've met, like my story, just sort of end up in this space, and they didn't know that they were going to be here, and they didn't do it on purpose, but everything just kind of came together, and here they are.
When you're stepping into your purpose, and when you step into your purpose, even though it looks ginormous, because if it wasn't ginormous and too big, it was too big for you to handle, really, that's the reason why you got that assignment.
Yeah.
And when you step into your purpose, the universe will just completely open up. And oftentimes you don't even see it opening up, and it will conspire for your success. And your tools are going to be there. I remember when I got my assignment to do what I'm doing now, my
Mhm.
person was like, "Okay, God, I mean, I know you do know I'm the crazy one." Yes, baby, I know. And the universe speaks and answers you like so that you can understand. I didn't get a whole bunch of big words, even though I know a lot of them, like 12. And I was like, okay, well, how I'm gonna get? No, don't worry about that. Okay, well, what I'm gonna? Don't worry about that. Well, what? Will you? Don't worry about that. And Scripture says you cannot serve two masters. You cannot serve worry and the spirit. You can't. And I couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it. And I oftentimes when it opens up, I'm like, God, I know God got a sense of humor. a wonderful sense of humor. Laughter, your whole body gets massaged when you're laughing. And oftentimes people look at the end of life as like this tragic, drastic thing, even when you know that it's coming, like with your grandmother, your great grandmother, or your mother, or your father, and you know that they're coming. And they tell you, well, they got 6 months to live, and they want to try to cram as much of that 6 months in as they can, or they just sit around and they wait to leave. And I think that part is sad. My mother wanted to have a party. She wanted to have a celebration. She said, don't mourn my death, celebrate my life. And when I was growing up, I always wanted to be a mortician. I wanted to be the last one to let you down. Everybody be dying to come and see me. I know all the dead jokes. And because that's a necessary time for all of us to go through. And the fact that there's a place that they can come to, somebody that they can talk to, can help them with the resources, because a lot of times people simply don't know what to do and where to go. And I think one of the biggest ways to end that dilemma is to sit down and talk about it. Sit down when nobody's dying. Sit down when nobody's sick. Sit down, over dinner or whatever it is that you're doing. Sit down and have that conversation. And yes, it could be scary, but have the conversation and it'll go a lot smoother. When she passed away, she made her transition. And she just dropped dead. One day I'm talking to her on Monday when I'm telling her I'm going to be on the First Prince of Bel-Air. The next day she had dropped dead. She always said she wasn't going to die before Jeopardy went off, too. As soon as Jeopardy went off and she got the last question, my sister said she just, for whatever reason, she just slid down and sat on the floor and crossed her legs and just had the biggest grin on her face. I'm telling you, if you had saw my mother in a casket, she was a smiling dead person. And she looked fabulous. This is what she has me to do. I did stand-up comedy for 15 years. She said, okay, baby, now this is what I want you to do at my funeral. I want you to get up there and talk to them people. And I want you to talk to them like you talk to them. I want you to be. I said, Mama, people don't do stand-up at no funeral. She said, well, that's whatever it is. I want you to get there and talk to them. And don't wear black. You look good in red. She passed away in the spring, and it was like a big burst of a garden. Everybody hung these bright, beautiful colors. I mean, and it was a celebration. Till people start getting filled full with alcohol, and when people die and they at the repast or they sit and shiver or wherever they are, and they start getting alcohol in them, all the secrets start coming out. That's one of my favorite parts of people dying. All the dirt is gonna come out. What do they have? Oh, this is another thing I think is kind of crazy. Kind of on task, but not. People that give deathbed confessions. Okay, now you kept that all your life. Okay, now you want to tell me that you are not Junior's father? Oh. And sometimes it can be fun. I want to go out and have this. This is how I'm going to go. I'm going to be like, Elizabeth, girl, let me say, that's going to be it. That's going to be
That would be sweet.
Wouldn't that be sweeter?
Everybody's got a different idea of what it should look like. And that's part of the beauty of it is you have this idea about celebration and joy, and isn't that magnificent? And that's what you want to bring into your world. And some people want something totally different. They want something quiet and peaceful. And some people want something where they're trying to get like every last moment of life that they can. And that's the point, is everybody's journey is different. And it's important to be able to know what you want so that you can help build what you want, and then to get the people you need to help you create it.
So now when you're creating, because I would go through our family when people passed away after, that was my assignment. And I'm not even the oldest child. I'm like the second one, the one they ignored.
How did you end up with that assignment?
Because I was awake half the time, and my mother would hear me wrestling in there because I would have thoughts going in. I was doodling down notes and what have you. And I don't know why people call you in the middle of the night and tell you that someone passed away. Don't call me in the middle of the night. They're going to be dead in the morning. Let me get a good night's sleep because it's going to hit me in the morning. Okay. You don't have to call it. Wake me up. Now I'm going to be fretting. I live 3,000 miles away from my family and my birth home, most of them. And we have family out here. But I'm like, nah, I got to get up in the middle. And you can't go back to sleep. So can you wait till 8 o'clock to call me? Call me at 8 o'clock in the morning.
I'll be sure not to call you before the morning if I ever have any news for you. I promise.
I think that's good. To me, that's just What? Don't do that because you're going to need all your energy, especially when it's somebody that's close to you.
And
You
some
know,
people want to know, like I would want to know immediately. If something happened to someone I loved, I would want to know as
in
soon
the
as
middle of the
possible.
night.
In the middle of the night. That's just me though. That's just
There are a
me.
lot of people like that. And that's a request that I have. It doesn't
Mhm.
necessarily mean that they, activate that request. It doesn't make we calling you whatever they calling. I'm like, but they'll be dead in the morning. I'm gonna have to have a clear head. I gotta make airplane trips. See, that's why you got to have, people that work at the airlines because
Yeah.
people don't die on cue. Like
No, there's a
my
lot
friend.
to take care of, and that's another
Oh,
part of it is thinking about, I mean, and one reason that it's really hard when people don't talk about it is there's so much to take care of afterwards, and that lands on somebody. And if nobody talked about what was supposed to happen next, it's really hard for that person who is loving and grieving and also having to handle so much of the life and logistics that come with it.
and a lot of emotional issues come up, yeah, especially when they're siblings. And don't let it be money involved in property because instead of grieving and celebrating their loved ones, like they're fighting over who's going to get the house, who's going to get mom's car. I want dad's golf clubs, and I'm like, wait a minute, can we have the service first?
Yeah.
I've seen people, their mother passes away. First, their father died, then their mother passed away. They didn't realize that the house was paid for, right? Okay, so it's like 3 kids. So they want, well, 2 of us are going to want this and one of us is going to want that. Then all 3 of them wanted something different. And that's why it's important to talk about this. What do you want to do? Well, how do you want to
And to come
belong?
together around it,
Yes, come
right?
together with it. When we were playing, and my mother had all her plans in a notebook. She knew what songs she wanted to have. She knew what music she wanted to have coming in and going out. She knew that she wanted me to get up and speak at her memorial service. She knew that it was going to people that were going to come there and want to give her the side eye. But she said, "Don't pay attention to that because my mother, everybody loved my mother." And so when we're coming out, you know, I forgot what I was going to tell you about my mother. It'll come to me in the middle of the night. And I'll be like, Elizabeth, wait a minute. I want to tell you this.
You can call me in the middle of the night. You don't
See,
have
look
to
at
wait till the
see,
morning.
and you wouldn't mind me calling.
No,
That
I
that
wouldn't.
that's because this is it could be a stressful situation
Can be, yeah.
because each family is different, each individual is different. You and your husband are the same people. How do you work together to make sure that all the life isn't sucked out of you? Because especially when it's something very complicated,
Yeah,
because you have to keep your wits about you. How do you do it?
for
How do
sure.
you manage that?
Well, we both work really hard at creating balance wherever we need it. We
Mhm.
are totally in love with our family, and that brings so much nourishment and joy to our lives, and that helps balance things out for us a lot. For me personally, because of all the health problems that I had and the habits and practices that I
Well, now,
developed.
what did you have looking all beautiful and everything?
Well, that's a
You-
very long story.
oh, well, it's our show. We can do whatever we want.
Well,
What they
I'll
gonna do?
come
They
to
can't.
it. I'll
They
come
can't
to
kick
it.
us off the air.
I'll
They
come
can't
to it.
fire us.
But because
No,
so I
seriously.
had I had a lot I had a lot of different specialists. I had heart problems and gut problems and neurological problems, and I'm neurodivergent, and I have chronic illnesses. There's just a whole mess of things. My whole body was kind of all over the place, and I didn't know why, and we didn't know how. So I had to develop a lot of really good practices to keep myself well. And
Mhm.
so I developed, and I started from a really young age. I actually was 4 years old when I started meditating. So I started from a really young age.
Wait, wait. What does a 4-year-old have to meditate about? We have to meditate to release the stress. We have to meditate to get in tune with the universe and the
And
spirits. And you're
yourself,
four
yeah.
and you're meditating.
Well, it wasn't because I had to, it was because I got to. So
That's what
my
I'm
mom,
saying.
yeah, my mom took a really beautiful spiritual journey, and she took me along with her. And so I got to start learning at a really young age about a lot of different psychological and spiritual practices and a lot of different traditions and philosophies. And so I built in a lot of different things like meditation and time in nature and going for walks, movement, paying attention to hydration and nutrition, really basic stuff
Mhm.
that actually makes living a lot more wholesome, joyful, bearable, and it makes me much more capable of showing up for myself and for my family and for everyone else that we serve.
So you know why I can tell you why you went through all of that. Let me tell you why you went through
I
all
have my
that.
own ideas, but I would love to
No,
hear
no.
yours.
Okay, I heard that. I heard that in your brain. I
But
heard
I
that.
want to know. I want to know.
You know why? I'm gonna tell you why you had. See, you done messed up the whole thing. I heard you thinking. The reason why you went through all of that was because God and the universe knew you could handle it.
And because I need to be here to help other people go through it.
You can handle it,
I
and
got to the other side
you're
of it.
handling it every day. How do you guys when you're not doing this, or are you ever not doing this?
We do work a lot, but we
Mhm.
also try to balance in special time for protected time for things that are, again, nourishing, family, all kinds of things like that. But we are available to our people all the time. That's part of our commitment. So
So many.
either we or someone on our team is always taking care of everyone that we're serving.
Now tell us, like the who are the people that are on your team, and how do they get to come to the table with you with Empowered Endings?
We have an incredible team. I could not begin to capture in words the magic that these people are in the world. And that somehow is also how they came to us. They are also those quote unquote flukes that just
There she goes again with the flukes.
right? They are those connections that are inspired. They are the things that are surprises, and they just become something really beautiful. So on our team, Bob is our doctor. He's the primary doctor. We have other doctors that work with us and support our patients, and especially when he's not available. But he partners very closely with all of our doulas. So how our team works was a model that we created not entirely on purpose, but just found ourselves in. So the work that I did as a spiritual counselor and a social worker, we realized was the emotional, spiritual, and grief support that patients and families really needed. And in in hospice, for example, you've got social workers and spiritual counselors, but there's a very regimented way in which the hospice team is able to engage with the patients and families. They're not calling every day, they're not available after hours, and that's part of the healthcare system, which is totally normal, but it's not really what a lot of people need. So we have a team of doulas who are they all have different backgrounds and they all have different specialties, some nurse, some grief, some different kinds of therapies, and they all do a little bit different things and bring a little bit different energy and fit different families.
Mhm.
And we have just a team that kind of works together in partnership around our doctor and the well, Shauna is the hub of everything. She's the person that takes everyone in and holds everyone's hand and helps everyone make sense of everything. And then this team of incredible doulas that provide their particular magic to the families that they're connected with. And one of the beautiful things is that partnership between the doctor and the doulas. So there's the clinical care with all of, the physician expertise and experience. And then there's the presencing of the emotional, spiritual, the deep waters of what people are going through and don't really know how to navigate, because a lot of people have never been through dying before and they've never been through losing a loved one before, and every loss is different. And so being able to have someone companioning and guiding them through it, who's been through it, who knows how to get through it. Like you said, we go through these things because we are meant to and we can handle them. And part of what we're meant to do is then help walk other people through it too. So,
Will you share with our audience and what a doula is and
sure.
how to become a doula?
Yeah, so doula is really interesting. There's kind of a movement afoot around the non-clinical holistic care and end of life. And a doula is a person who can provide that care. And a doula could be someone who is a nurse who also learns how or wants to provide emotional and spiritual support. Or it could be someone who has been a hairdresser and wants to get trained in being a companion and guide for people in their end of life journeys. It can be really anyone. The model is on the basis of the birthing movement, which happened many decades ago, where it used to be that birthing was about a doctor and a mother in a hospital having a baby, and it was a very clinical experience, and not even the family was allowed to be a part of it.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And then the family started to integrate into it, and doulas and midwives became part of the birthing experience for people who wanted something that was more emotionally and holistically supported. So now you've got birthing centers where people can go, and they still have doctors watching them to make sure that
Mm-hmm.
everything is in order.
Mm-hmm.
But their primary support is someone who is not very clinical, but really attuned to their goals and wishes and their needs, and helping to resource them in creating that. And the end of life journey can be equally supported and holistic through the marriage of the clinical care and the non-clinical care, and all of the gifts that we bring as human beings who have been through so much, and each of us who has a different kind of, again, training and background. So there are different doula trainings. There are a few different organizations where people can get trained. Conscious Dying Institute in Nelda. We're actually building the Empowered Endings Institute, where we will have doula trainings, and not just doula trainings, but also trainings for community members, the patients and family caregivers who are interested in learning about their journey and how they can plan it for themselves and what resources they can bring in. Doulas who are interested in learning the basics of how to be a doula, but also how to specialize in things like life enhancing care, the holistic therapies, how to specialize in things like end of life options, which are legal throughout the United States and internationally in different places. And the hospice and hospital staff, people who are already in this space but want to learn a little bit more about one thing or another. You might have a hospice nurse who's interested in learning about the spiritual and emotional impact of the end of life journey or an end of life option. You might have a hospice social worker who's really interested in some of the clinical conversations and the paperwork that need to be designed for people to have their wishes in order and things like that. So there are more and more organizations that are helping to support doulas in learning what it is that they need to know so that they can do it. But there's really nowhere yet in the traditional healthcare model where doulas can do what they do. The only place that they kind of fit in is as volunteers for hospice. And that's what we want to change. We want to change the whole model of end of life care. We want to change the paradigm shift in all of it so that the entire process is supported on every level. The whole human being gets the personalized and attuned care that they want and need, and all of the resources and support that allow them to, as you say, as you were talking earlier, kind of trust the process, live in that joyful space, experience the peace that they deserve, and have that really beautiful, empowered end of life experience.
And know that it's okay to die peacefully. I was in a really bad car accident when I was 17. And the doctors called my mom and my grandmothers and all the praying women into the emergency room and said, you know what, we don't think she's going to make it through the night. If we do this, she's going to puncture a lung or her, whatever. And he said, well, if you have a pastor or a minister, have them come down. And my mother turned around and I saw this and she said, there's no way you could have saw this. There was no way. And I saw her turn around to the doctor. She never took her hands off of me. And she said, oh, you don't understand. This
Ooh,
is
I just got
God's child.
chills.
And she turned, and that was it. That was it. So my mentality is, okay, you better do as much good as you can, because you living on house money, you living on borrowed time. And that's what made me not be afraid of dying. I mean, cause it's like saying, well, I'm afraid of being born. Really?
Yeah.
What do you think that big fear is?
I think that's a really
Look
good
on
question.
your face.
I think a lot
Like,
of people
oh Lord.
a lot of people have different manifestations of it, but I think ultimately it's the fear of being separated from something that feels really important to them. And I think that one of the things you asked earlier about, having been at bedside with people who are transitioning and the sort of spiritual experiences, I've had some really interesting ones. But one of the things that is an observation that I've had made. So this is not like data tested or evidence based in any way. This is just my opinion based on my experience. It seems really consistent that people who have a clarity about who they are and where they're going have a much faster and gentler journey. So the people I've been at bedside with who knew, for example, there was a woman that I supported who had had a near-death experience when she was a young child, and she knew exactly where she was going and exactly what it was going to be like. And she was delighted about it because she knew it was going to be beautiful, just as you're describing. There was no fear. She had total clarity and very unexpectedly died very quickly, even though it looked like she could have gone on for a much longer time. But it was almost as if she willed herself there because she was excited to be there, which sounds kind of crazy, but
No,
I think
no,
the
no, it
clarity is
doesn't.
part of it.
No, it does not sound crazy. Well, maybe. I just thought about that. That's why people think I'm crazy because I'm
We can be crazy together, but
okay. So now there's our scientific data on that. You agree? You tell me I agree.
yeah, perfect.
Hey, other people make up rules as they go along. Why can't we make up our own rules as
Well,
we
I
go?
think you also talked about like living as you're dying, dying as you're living. If you know, I'm sure you've had this experience because you've talked to so many different people in life and you've seen so much of what the human experience can be. People believe things, and that's a lot about how they live. Like that, what we believe about who we are and how that relates to other human beings or the things that are beyond us, higher
Mhm,
powers, gods,
mhm,
universes, sources, whatever we
mhm.
call these things that are, you know, even just nature. What we believe really dictates a lot about what we experience, and that's true in life. And I learned that through my own health journeys. I had to examine a lot of my beliefs in order to help my body and mind and heart heal. And that is also what I think makes me think that it's possible, it's true in the end of life journey and in the death and dying transitions, because it makes sense that if it's true in life, it would be true in death. And because what I've seen suggests that if you believe something very clearly, it is part of what will happen. It is part of what you create in some way. And it's a way that we can't ever totally understand. We've got a lot of guides,
Mhm.
lots of books, lots, you know, there are lots of different traditions and religions that teach us a lot of things about what a lot of people have seen and understood, but we can't really know until we go through it. And who knows what that's going to be like
See, that's
ultimately.
why it's called faith. That's
Right.
why, because faith is seeing something that you don't see, but you believe that it's there. It's like when people say, naysayers, "Oh, well, I can't get this job, or I can't find a husband, I can't find a wife."
You're
Okay,
not
if you
going to.
believe that thing, if you
Right.
believe it, you're right. You're absolutely. I can't argue with you, baby. I can't get, but when
No
you
one's going
believe
to argue
that
with you,
that
right?
you can do a certain thing, you know, sometimes we think out of the realm. I know I could do this. And then you go, okay, was I crazy? Well, maybe I can do. Well, just try. Just try to do it. And I don't like that word anyway. Try. You either do it
Not
or you don't
either.
do it. Either
Sorry
do
and
it.
try are off my list.
See, and I don't that maybe and what if and woulda, coulda, shoulda, Buddha, bada, hooda. And when you know that you know, as I said before, the universe will open up for you. Where do you see you and Bob and Empowered India? I know you said you guys are building a center and going to have training and everything. And so how do we sign up to
What's
be a?
the
Because
vision?
I feel like when you describe the doula. I've been in those positions. I've helped
Sure.
deliver babies. I've done eulogies. I've done marriage renewal vows. People after my mother's funeral. This is how crazy her funeral was. I told you she wanted a celebration. We're walking out, with the casket in front of us, the music is playing, Earth, Wind, and Fire is jamming, everybody bopping around, and people are coming up to me and say, "Girl, I need you to come and do my grandmother's funeral." I'm like, "Do what at your grandmother's funeral?"
Events.
Who gets invited to do stand up at a funeral? But then when they thought about it, the first three letters of funeral are fun, Fun. So
Ooh,
I mean,
very clever.
and funeral, and you break it down, fun for all,
I
funeral.
love it.
That's me. That's me. I told you how I'm gonna leave. I'm gonna have my last breath and just fall on the keyboard or fall out in the kitchen because I cook all the time. Now, do you cook? Do you have time to cook for your family?
I mean, sometimes I used to cook a lot more. I used to garden. I used to have hobbies. I used to do a lot of other things.
And now this is just taking over your life.
I dedicate a lot of time to this. It's really exciting and inspiring, and it feels really important. Like we talked about earlier, it's a calling. So it's something that, and it also is something that didn't seem practical or reasonable, and I have believed is happening. I mean, I can see it. I saw it in my dreams. I can see it. I can feel it in the future. I know it's there. And we're just going one step at a time and trusting the process and trusting the timing and trusting that, we're living by principle. We are being of service. We are giving of ourselves in a space where we have a way to give that really improves people's experience of life. And I deeply believe that that is something that you also can't argue with. If that's what you're doing, no matter what the outcome is, you're in the right place and there's nowhere else to be. So
Well, somebody's asking, will you explain palliative care and
sure.
what that means?
Yeah, and I'll also talk a little bit about kind of the vision of what we're headed towards, because I know you
Okay.
asked about that.
I did.
So,
I'm nosy.
palliative care is, in the simplest terms, it's kind of transitions care. It's a space where people who have substantial, complex illnesses and issues around their illnesses need more support than just going to the doctor once a year or every now and again. And it's been built into the insurance system now. So it's something that is supported where people have interdisciplinary teams, just like the hospice teams. They have a doctor and a social worker, spiritual support, all different nurses, all different kinds of support that help guide them and their families through these complex health journeys.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes people need it for a period of time. Sometimes people need it for a long period of time. It helps to keep people comfortable and headed in the right direction, whatever their goals are for their own health journey and whatever is available to them. And it just adds an extra layer of support where people need additional support, just like hospice care, but without the terminal illness part of it.
Mm-hmm. And that's what I want people to understand. This is a process. This is a part of life. And I wouldn't want to live forever. Well, I'm going to live forever anyway because I am a published author. You write it down. I told you there's 3 things I'm trying to not do. I'm trying to not die, pay taxes, because I'm going to be Black. And people always say, what you have to do. Let me tell you what I have to do. I have to stay Black and die. And I'm not even Black. I'm burnt sienna. Thank you very much. Somebody, they can tell color. No, you can't. You sitting there telling me I'm Black. You sound like a crazy person. I remember on my first movie set, I did a movie with Hulk Hogan. You know who Hulk Hogan is, right? So his son was a little boy, and he was on the set one day, and this child has never seen me a day in his life. He runs immediately to me, jumps up in my arms, touched on my face, and told his dad, I like the brown lady. I said, I'm never going to let him call me that again. Just pure. And children, we got to look at them. The reason why I'm asking about earlier about the younger people, because this is a skill set that really needs to be passed down to the next generation. And they already think they're going to live forever. And this will be a wake-up call for them. I'm just letting you know, baby, it's going to come.
Well, one thing that's really interesting is I've always believed that I was taught and always believed that children can guide us. And so when my daughter was born, for example, I was very young and I knew
How young were you?
I was 22.
Oh, that was old enough I thought you were going to say like 16. That's young.
It's fair.
You were an adult. Okay, that's still young.
I was an adult, and I also had no idea how to be an adult at 22 years old. I mean, that's not really an adult, let's be honest. So in my book, I was very young, and I knew enough to know that I didn't know what I was doing. And so I paid close attention to her and to her guiding me in a way that, obviously I was there to teach her, to protect her, to take care of her, to guide her as well. But I let her guide me. And I think in the space of children, we can learn a lot from children. We can learn an enormous amount from children. And I'm still learning from my children. I adore my children, particularly because they inspire me every day to be a better version of myself, because I'm constantly learning from them. And I love being around children for the reason that they are connected to something that we sometimes lose, and they don't lose it, and they just live it. They are it. And I think that's something that's a part of, children being introduced like you were and like my dad was at a young age to this lifelong journey Or children like my daughter, who was 9 years old when she had the most devastating loss that you could imagine, and helping to guide her through that in a way that allowed her to become the incredible young woman that she is, but also letting her guide me in guiding her. It's incredible to watch what
Yeah.
children can
Yeah,
do
because
and how you
we
can learn.
we didn't get the mommy book and the parenting book. We didn't no, I didn't, and I'm holding the baby all upside down. Like, where are the instructions? You want me to be in charge of another human being? Oh, see, God, you funny. You
I
real.
didn't even know that I could put her down for
You,
3 months. When I literally learned when she was 3 months old, someone told me because she was crying and I was really exhausted and I didn't know what to do. And I called a kind of mentor of mine. She was like, "You could put her down in the crib and go take a breath outside." I said, "Can I really do
yes,
that?"
you can.
I did not know. I did not know I could do that.
I didn't. I would look at my son like this. And it was always like the look. I felt like I was having the look of terror on my face, and I'm like, okay, I don't want to scare the baby. I don't want to scare the baby. I told him, I'm married to my baby daddy, and I told him, I said, I don't know what to do, honey. Why would God do this to me? He said, it's gonna be all right.
It's a miracle.
It
It's the
truly
most
is a
incredible
miracle.
gift.
It is the best thing I ever did in my whole entire life was bring this young person, this human being on the planet, and he's procreated. He has 4 children, and they're teenagers. And teenagers will make you understand why some species eat their young.
It's funny. We have 2 teenagers, and people
Oh,
often
it's a
say,
good thing you pretty because you crazy with 2 teenagers. Are they a boy and a girl?
boy and a girl,
One
but
of each.
I gotta tell you, people always say, "Oh my gosh," and so I'm so sorry, all these things. It, I mean, they're human. We're all human, but they are the most incredible blessings in our lives. They are just extraordinary people, and I am constantly in awe of who they are and who they're becoming. And we now actually have a grandbaby too, and so we get to start from scratch with that.
What's your you got a grandma name? What's your grandma name?
Abuela, because I have my
Abuela.
abuela.
I'm
Yeah.
Awa.
Oh,
Awa
Awa.
is Eve and Warlock. It comes from Africa, the first woman of the earth was named
Beautiful.
Awa.
Wow.
Isn't that? I was like, that's way too big to be putting on my
That's
shoulders.
beautiful. So
And now,
mine,
I mean, it's just, if I had known I could love another human being more than I loved my son, I would have told you he was crazy. Now, okay, he can come over, drop him off, whatever. That they made 4 human beings
yeah,
who
it's wild.
it's just overwhelming sometimes, and just to watch them grow and turn into, like I said, they're teenagers, and we have a set of fraternal twins, and they'll be 15 next year. And I remember being 15. Our oldest granddaughter is 17, and I knew what I was doing at 17, and some of it was a bunch of skullduggery. But see, God kept me through it. The Spirit kept me moving through the universe, because God had a better plan. You know what they say? If you want to hear God laugh, tell me your plan. And I was
Yes,
like, okay, wait, I got a plan. We're like,
very familiar with
yeah,
that
right. You got a
particular
plan.
one.
Okay, no,
I love the way so my grandma named Buela also comes from my Spanish
uh-huh.
Basque background, and I love the way there's something about the sort of ancestral mantle that we take on when we keep the generations going. And I love the way that your a grandmother name also brings that to you. And there's something about embodying that and becoming it in a way that maybe you
I
couldn't
do.
before.
I do. When they were little, children have no filter. Kids have
Great.
zero filter. Our elders have zero filter. Little
Oof.
kids don't know what the filter is, and they're just, Mommy, why they got that big knot on their head? Baby, no. Baby, I got to go to the bathroom. I got to do. We're in church. I was like, Lord Jesus, just kill me under the pew. Just kill me under the pew. And see, when you're a grandparent, you can't be embarrassed with kids. You don't know where they gonna go off on their filter. How's your grandbaby?
How old? So he was born in June
Oh, that's a new
26th.
baby.
So
He's
he's new,
oh,
and
you
he's
gotta
coming to
see some new
visit
baby
in a
smell.
couple
There's
weeks.
nothing
So
like the
he's
smell of
little.
a new baby.
Yeah.
Okay, except for that poop. Because sometimes they poop like a grown up. And I'm like, oh, just wait. Pace yourself, baby. When you see your life and your turn is over,
Yeah.
and you're making your transition, what do you want people to remember you? How do you want them to remember
You know,
Elizabeth.
it's interesting. It's kind of hard for me to see that far because I'm so focused on the kind of near future and everything that we're building. And so I know that that is part of it. I know that what we are building now, the medical practice that we have, the institute that we're building, the foundation that we have and are developing, and all of the other ways that we're supporting this space, I know that that's a huge part of what I want to be remembered for, not just because it's something cool that I got to do, but because for me, it captures so much of who I am. Like advocating for people who are in a space where they don't know what they're doing, just like I didn't. And connecting all of the dots in my own health journey and my own professional journey and my own personal journey, and creating a business model that supports not just the people that we're serving, but the people who work with us so that their humanity is a part of it.
I like what you
And
said. I like what you said. I didn't mean to cut you off when you said the people that we work with, not the people that work for us,
oh, for
because
sure.
it's a team effort. You've
For
heard that before.
sure. It's all about partnership.
It's
Everything that
all
we do,
about
we partner with our patients, we partner with their families, we partner with their doctors, we partner with each other, we partner with our kids in our
and now you
family.
can partner with Mother Love when you need an outlet to get the information out again. It has been such a joy to have you on
Thank
the program.
you.
Finally, I'm not going to even tell them. I thought I'm going to have to drop a dragnet around to find her. I'm like, you talk about this woman is
Thank you for
busy than
your
a one-arm
persistence.
welder, and we are just so pleased to have finally had the
The
opportunity.
joy.
Please know that you are always welcome here. And I want to thank the Blaine Group, Devin and Adam, for making sure we got this connection. Always know
Thank you
we are
so
here.
much.
It is my pleasure. Give my regards to Bob, and just know they were right here because I'm going to take the doula training. Maybe I have to wait till you build yours.
Do definitely
Yeah, I
call
will.
me. We'll
I
set
will.
you up.
With the kids. All right, my dear. Peace and blessings to you. It's been a joy. Thank you so much.
So much.